I still remember the night I almost ended it all. The rain was pounding on the windshield of my old Dodge Ram as I sat on the edge of a forgotten highway bridge just outside Baton Rouge. The headlights cut through the dark like two solemn eyes, watching me silently, and the weight of everything I had failed at pressed against my chest like a cinder block. I was 32 years old, broke, addicted, and utterly alone. If you'd told me back then that I'd be sharing this story on YouTube, telling the world why I chose Christianity, I probably would have laughed in your face or worse. But God had other plans for me. My name is John Kennedy. Not the president, not the senator, just a regular guy from Louisiana who grew up thinking he didn't need anyone, especially not God. I was raised in a trailer park with my mum and two younger sisters. My dad left when I was 8. No goodbye, no note, just a memory of a man who yelled too much and loved too little. My mum worked double shifts at a diner to keep food on the table, and I learned early that the world wasn't going to hand me anything. So, I fought for everything. I got in trouble a lot fighting at school, stealing, skipping class. It wasn't because I was evil. I was angry. Angry that we were poor. Angry that Dad left. Angry that no one seemed to care. By the time I was 17, I dropped out of high school and started working construction. The guys on the crew became my family. They drank hard, worked hard, and carried pain like armor. I fit right in. On weekends, we partied, and during the week I numbed whatever pain I felt with alcohol and, eventually, drugs. Meth came into the picture by 24. It started off as a weekend escape and ended up as a prison. I lost my job, lost my apartment, and even stole from my mum once just to get high. That was the lowest I thought I could go. But rock bottom has a basement. The night on the Bridgeman that night was different. I had just come from a failed job interview. I'd been clean for 2 weeks and thought maybe, just maybe, things were turning around. But the manager looked at my record drug charges, petty theft, and shook his head. "Sorry, John, we can't take that kind of risk." He was polite, but the words stabbed. I sat in that truck, thinking of all the ways I had failed. My mum, who still prayed for me, my sisters who barely answered my calls anymore, and a friend I lost to an overdose just a month before. That night, I didn't want to be alive. Not because I wanted to die, but because I didn't know how to live anymore. And then something happened. Something I can't explain with logic. I reached over to the glove box to grab what I thought was my stash. Instead, I pulled out a small, crumpled Bible. It was my mom's. She must have left it in there when she borrowed the truck last month. My first instinct was to toss it on the floor, but something stopped me. I opened it randomly. It fell on Psalm 34, and my eyes landed on verse 18. "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and saves those who are crushed in spirit." I stared at those words like they were written just for me. Brokenhearted, crushed in spirit. That was me. I read it again, then again. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel angry. I felt seen. I sat in that truck for hours, reading more verses, crying, sobbing, actually, and whispering to the night, "God, if you're real, I need you." That was the beginning. The next morning, I drove to a church I'd passed 100 times before, and never thought twice about. It was small, nothing fancy. A sign out front read, "Come as you are." I did. I walked in wearing a stained flannel shirt, still smelling like cigarettes and regret. An older man, Pastor Dave, welcomed me like I was a long-lost friend. He didn't look at me with judgment, just compassion. He invited me to sit with him, and after the service, I told him everything. My addiction, my shame, my doubts. And he didn't flinch. He just said, "John, Jesus doesn't wait for us to clean up before he saves us. He meets us in our mess." Over the next few weeks, I kept coming back. I joined a recovery group they ran in the church basement. It was the first time I was honest with people and myself. We prayed together, cried together, and celebrated clean days like they were birthdays. One night, at a candlelit service, I gave my life to Christ. It wasn't a dramatic thunderclap moment. It was quiet, but something shifted deep in my soul. I felt hope for the first time. The road to recovery wasn't easy. There were setbacks. Days I wanted to give up. But now, I had something I never had before. Purpose. I started volunteering at the church, speaking at youth groups about addiction and faith. I got a job through one of the men in my recovery group, and within a year, I was working full-time again. But the greatest gift. My mum, she cried the day I told her I got baptized. And my sisters. They came to watch me speak at a high school assembly last year. Said they were proud of me. Today, I'm 5 years clean. I'm married to a woman who knows my past and loves me anyway. We have a little boy named Caleb. He has my smile and his mother's heart. Every night, we read from that same little Bible my mum left in the truck. So why did I choose Christianity? Because when the world turned its back on me, Jesus didn't. Because when I was broken, he called me beloved. Because when I had nothing to offer, he offered me everything. Christianity isn't about pretending you're perfect. It's about knowing you're not and still being loved anyway. I don't know where you're at right now. Maybe you're like I was, lost, angry, ashamed. Maybe you feel like you've messed up too many times. Let me tell you, there is no pit so deep that God's love isn't deeper still. I chose Christianity not because I was strong, but because I was weak. Not because I had all the answers, but because I finally asked the right question. God, will you take me as I am? And he did. And he will for you too. Thanks for watching. If my story touched you, drop a comment. If you're struggling, reach out. There's hope. There's healing, and there's a Savior who never gives up on you. God bless.